Hi, my name is Brax Montier with UFLTV, and I'm here interviewing Rob. Rob, do you want to introduce yourself real quick for the audience?
Yeah, thanks, Braxton. My name is Rob Adams. I'm a real estate agent. I've been in the business about 15 years.
Wonderful. So I have a couple of questions for you, Rob. Um, what is your experience with real estate as it relates to divorce? How often does that come up in your 15 years?
It's interesting that I represent commercial business and buyers and sellers. I do a lot of different business, but it seems to me that I've kind of fallen into the niche of a divorce expert. It comes up again and again, and I get referred over and over again. So I've fallen into this niche just through happenstance, but I really do enjoy it.
Wonderful. What makes real estate important to the parties in a divorce? Sometimes it's their biggest asset, but what really keeps them really fighting over it?
That's interesting. They lose sight of the equity and the principle and the goal to sell the home for as much as possible in the least amount of time with the least amount of stress, and they get onto an emotional level and they really lose focus. And so that's the hard part for me, or for most divorcees, is staying focused on the goal, which is making the most amount of money that they can.
Yeah, because some people will just fight and bicker back and forth, and it's like, okay, you got what you wanted, but do you see how much you actually lost?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Is it hard to sell a house that was an asset in a divorce case?
It sure can be. It really can be, because you'll fall into some passive aggressive behaviors from one of the other parties, or someone doesn't want to sell the home, and so they're less than motivated, and so they make it more difficult to actually get under contract. Um, and so there's a little bit of an extra dynamic associated with selling during a divorce.
Okay. And what is the process of putting a house on the market during a divorce as it would be compared to like after the decree was issued?
After the decree, it's pretty cut and dry because it's very clear of who gets what. I take the decree and I actually send it to my title company, and they manage the disbursement of the funds according to the decree. And so it's really very cut and dry on what needs to happen, when, and how. And so I like that. It's during the divorce, when we're trying to sell, where things get a little bit slippery, because we haven't decided on where the funds are going to go and who gets the proceeds and in what regard. And so they have to be pretty amicable in order to approach that during pre divorce.
Okay. Has there been a time when the parties in a divorce, one or both, have actively worked against you during the selling process? And how did you handle something like that?
There has been. In fact, I just had one expire. It was a fourplex that they bought just recently, and so they didn't have enough equity to sell the home without coming to the table without cash. So it usually costs 7 to 10% to sell your home after all of everything is paid. And since they had only bought the home about a year ago, it was an investment property. They weren't represented very strongly when they bought it, and so they paid a premium for it. And now it's time to sell, and the wife continually would not accept a reasonable offer, even though the offer was like really limiting their bringing how much they needed to bring in. She just was making it more difficult. And also, she lived in one of the units, and so she went in and she started doing a remodel, and then that wasn't in the disclosures, and so we were then falsely representing this home on the market, because this home now had construction happening in one of its four units, and this and that, and she just wasn't on board the whole time. And so now the house has fallen into it's going to go into foreclosure, because her efforts have made it impossible for them to they can't afford the house separate.
And they can't get out from under it now because of
Yeah.
her efforts. So that that's really terrible for them.
I
Um,
feel bad for the spouse that was, he was just trying to do what was in the divorce decree. He was really
yeah,
trying to be, and it wasn't comfortable for him either. This wasn't any fun for him. And so that's who I feel bad for, is he really did his best.
yeah. What other kind of common pitfalls can people fall into during the selling process? I know just having a spouse complicates it a lot. And so having just a spouse that refuses to cooperate can be really terrible. But what are the
Yeah.
other pitfalls that people can fall into during the selling process?
A lot of times, especially in the market the way that it is right now, it's pretty volatile, as it has been for the past few years, and them not having a clear understanding of what it's going to take to sell the house and for how much. They'll have maybe an inflated value in their mind, and a lot of the decrees have a time frame in which that they need to be executed, and so they fall outside the time frames, and then that gets to be expensive. When I tell you that I think the house is worth a certain dollar amount, I am being modest in that amount, and hopefully I can make you more. A lot of real estate agents, in order to obtain the business, will overpromise and then underdeliver, and it puts the divorcees outside their timelines, and that gets pretty expensive when you have to go back to court now and work with that. And so I'm a very modest promiser, so that could be a big problem.
Yeah. So, do you enjoy working on real estate that's been associated with the divorce? I know you said you've kind of fallen into this role, but is it something that you enjoy?
I do enjoy it, and the thing that I enjoy most about it is once I set a clear precedence on how I'm going to communicate with the two people and the rules of engagement. It's usually really very painless. It gets to be very more business than it is an emotional decision. And I appreciate that. This is our net number. This is what we need to do. I would prefer if you communicated to both of us and this and that. And once we have those rules established, or what I like to call clear expectations, then it's pretty easy. Every once in a while, you'll have that one combative person that will go south and cause problems. But for the most part, both people are excited to close this chapter and move forward. And I find a lot of joy in helping them. I don't know if heal is the right word, but in this healing process to get on with their lives. It's rewarding.
That's great. If a house is sold because of a divorce, does that affect the price at all, or the overall structure of the deal? Does it really change things that much?
Really, the only thing it changes price-wise, not so much, because I mean, if we market the home properly, then we'll get as much as possible. The one thing that makes it a little bit harder is that I need to have an extended timeline because they're usually not in the same household together. So in order to get an approval on an offer or an addendum, anything at all, it takes me a little bit longer because I'm communicating with two parties rather than one party like in a normal home sale. So I usually tell the buyers that they need to give me an extra day or so, and if I can set that expectation, there's not a problem, but it is something to consider.
Wonderful. How long does it take to normally sell a house? Does that change when the divorce is pending, or does it kind of go back to normal after the decree is issued?
Right now, with the market the way that it is, well, the way it always is that the days on market on a certain dollar amount is different. I can sell a house for $430,000 right now for about 56 days is what it's taking. And that's a total escrow time. And so if I don't have an offer, escrow is about 30 days. And so if I don't have an offer within 16 days on that price point, well, then we're overpriced. And every price is associated with a different time range. When you get up into the $1 million price point, it takes a little bit longer to sell the home because there's just not that as many buyers. And so it's not divorce related, it's price point related.
Okay. What can people going through a divorce do to make the process of selling the marital home better?
My opinion about that is that I would hire a real estate agent that you've never done business with before. Most real estate agents are her friend or his friend, and because of that, they are biased. The reason that I've fallen into this is because most of the time I haven't met either of these people, and I'm Switzerland. I'm easy. I just want you both to sell your home. And so that would be my advice is find someone that is neutral, that you can both trust, that doesn't have a dog in the fight other than your overall success. If it's his real estate agent, well, then his advice is suspect, because he's not, he's pulling for one of the parties. That would be my advice.
Wonderful. Well, that was all of my questions. Where can people reach out to you if they need an impartial real estate agent?
Adams Family Real Estate is my website. You can get on there. You can always, if you go to adamsfamilyrealestate.com, you can click in to be contacted to have a free assessment of your home, or to have me come and look at the home and visit with you both and talk about fair expectations and see if I'm a fit. I'm not a fit for everybody, but I'm pretty impartial because I realize I have been divorced, and I realize that with all the things on the plate, that relationship, the children, all the assets, one less thing to worry about is important. And so Adams Family Real Estate is a place to go and check us out.
Wonderful. Well, and thank you for letting me interview you.
Braxton, I appreciate the opportunity. I feel as though this is an underserved demographic, and it's getting divorced is stressful. Like, how can I help? So thank you for the opportunity.